Fujifilm's X100 V became one of the most famous cameras in the world, thanks to influencers who adored its retro-chic cool factor. Now, the company has launched the X100 VI, and it may be even more popular with months-long wait times shortly after launch. It has some key improvements over the previous model, including a much higher resolution 40-megapixel sensor, in-body stabilization, better video, and more. At the same time, it retains the looks and discreet size people loved about the X100 V. With all that, I was keen to get a hold of one to check the performance, so I hopped the Eurostar over to London with a motley crew of photographer friends to see if it's really worth the high price and considerable delay. The X100 series is beloved in large part because of the adorable vintage rangefinder styling, so Fujifilm didn't mess with that. On top of the near identical looks, the button and dial layout is largely unchanged from the previous model. Fujifilm also kept the 23mm f2 lens from before. The X100 VI is slightly chunkier by 2mm to accommodate the in-body stabilization and weighs 521 grams compared to 478 grams. That's not much, but every gram counts for a camera designed to be carried around all day. With dedicated dials for ISO, shutter, exposure compensation, and aperture, the X100 VI is an outlier these days compared to most modern cameras. But those things do serve a purpose, showing settings at a glance, a must for street shooting on the fly. The X100 VI isn't just aping rangefinder cameras either. You can switch between the 3.69 million dot EVF, which is the same as the last model, a full optical viewfinder, or a hybrid optical viewfinder with a picture-in-picture EVF. The last setting is for people who still want a digital security blanket, and it works impeccably. The rear display is also unchanged, allowing basic up and down tilting for high or low angle shooting. That means it's not great for selfies or vlogging, but perfect for a shoot-from-the-hip camera. The menu system is mostly the same and can be a bit daunting, but the quick menu and numerous buttons and dials allow for easy adjustments. It's also customizable, and I'd advise buyers to set it up to their preferences to avoid any shooting errors. There's a single slot that only supports slower UHS-1 cards, unfortunately, along with a USB-C port for charging and data. The micro HDMI port supports external recorders, though the tiny camera looks hilarious with one attached. Finally, the battery is the same smallish one as before, which is a bit unfortunate, as you'll soon see. Another neat feature is the 4-stop ND filter that makes it easier to shoot in bright sunlight, especially for video. Despite the higher resolution, the X100 VI still shoots at a decent 11 frames per second, with buffer space for about 17 uncompressed RAW frames. It can capture up to 37 JPEGs at that same speed, which is fine considering that many X100 photographers don't even shoot in RAW. JPEG bursts are a bit faster at 13 frames per second in electronic shutter mode. However, the X100 VI has a near-silent mechanical shutter, and rolling shutter in electronic mode is pronounced. Autofocus is much improved compared to the X100 V. It's more reliable for subject tracking and adds new autofocus modes for animals, birds, cars, motorcycles, airplanes, and trains. Fuji's eye and subject detection are separate though, forcing you to change settings to go between the two. Fujifilm's AF system is already middling, lagging behind Sony and Canon, and the X100 VI is even less effective than the XH2 and X-T5 due to the slowish motors on the fixed lens, so shooting moving subjects is a bit hit or miss. That said, burst shooting is not what this camera is for, and the fact that it's decent at all is a bonus. In-body stabilization might be the biggest single improvement for any X100 camera. With 6 stops of shake reduction, you can get sharp shots down to about a quarter second. That lets you blur motion to make some interesting, creative shots. The optical viewfinder takes some getting used to, as subjects close to the camera may not be framed the way you expect due to parallax. That's why the EVF insert mode is nice, as it supplies a second, true view of the scene. One issue is battery life, with only 450 shots on a charge, or just 310 if you use the electronic viewfinder. We found that 2 batteries for a full day's shooting was barely enough, so factor extra ones into your buying decision. You may also want an external charger, as Fujifilm doesn't supply one in the box. The 40 megapixel sensor delivers a big boost in resolution over the X100 V's 26 megapixels. And while the lens is the same as before, it can resolve the extra detail. It's also handy if you need to crop in, a common requirement with a fixed wide-angle lens camera. It shares the X-T5 sensor, so image quality is largely the same. In-camera treatment of JPEGs is handled well with pleasant, accurate colors and a nice balance of noise reduction and detail. You can often share photos straight out of the camera, something that's important to street photographers who do little to no post-processing. The 14-bit RAW photos offer plenty of room for fine-tuning, even in bright or dark areas. However, if you underexpose shots and try to boost levels, noise can get out of hand compared to a full-frame camera. The higher resolution doesn't hurt image quality much at higher ISOs. Noise is well controlled up to ISO 6400, and you can go up to ISO 12800 if exposure is set correctly. We were pleasantly impressed with the quality when shooting in bars and other dark environments. And of course, the X100 VI offers Fujifilm's full array of film simulation modes. You can experiment with popular looks like Velvia, Eterna, or Acros black and white, and still have a full-color RAW backup. As the only major camera company also selling 35mm film, Fuji's simulations are the most pleasing and realistic. The excellent video specs are another bonus on this camera. It has nearly the same feature set as the X-T5, so you can shoot 6.2K at 30 frames per second with a 1.23 times crop, or 4K at up to 60 frames per second with line skipping and a 1.14 times crop. It also offers subsampled 4K at up to 30p using the full sensor width, or high-quality 4K 30p with a 1.23 times crop. Fujifilm also introduced 10-bit and F-Log 2. It takes a while to get used to the different modes and cropping levels. At 6.2K and 4K HQ, rolling shutter is pronounced, so you'll need to be aware of that. At the same time, full sensor subsampled 4K is noticeably more low-res than the HQ mode. Video autofocus matches what we see with photos, meaning it's decent but not super reliable for moving subjects. The AI-powered AF does lock onto subjects, but again, it can't always keep up to flying birds, animals, or vehicles. Handheld video is now a realistic option with the in-body stabilization. It works well for handheld shooting, particularly in boost mode. Digital stabilization isn't supported with the 6K or HQ modes, and doesn't really smooth out walking or fast movements. Video quality is solid for a small compact camera, offering the same accurate colors you see in JPEG video modes. Shooting in 10-bit F-Log makes it possible to adjust footage considerably in post or get creative. And of course, you can also shoot video using the film simulation modes if you want a specific look straight out of the camera. Fujifilm has made all the right moves to keep the X100 VI viral by tucking a competent street and travel camera into a beautiful, retro cute body. The extra resolution, in-body stabilization, and new video features are more than enough to tempt owners to upgrade. The $1,600 X100 VI doesn't have a lot of competition, which is odd considering its success. Leica springs to mind with the Q2, though that's a $5,800 camera. Another option is the $1,000 Ricoh GR3X, which also has an APS-C sensor but more limited capabilities. Sony's $900 ZV-1 II is also in this compact category, but it's mostly designed for video. Keep an eye on Panasonic as they may release a new compact camera, according to recent rumors. I've worked with street photographers who swear by the X100 VI, and I love it personally. But let's give the final word to Samuel, who used the camera extensively in London.
Esthétiquement, ils sont très similaires. On a vraiment du mal à faire la différence entre les deux appareils. J'aime beaucoup son look. C'est un détail, mais moi je l'aime bien. Il a un petit côté old school. Fuji, ils ont quand même une intuitivité au niveau des commandes qui est vraiment excellente. Tout est sur place, tout tombe très naturellement dans les mains et on va très vite à changer les réglages.
Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe. And for more on technology, check out Engadget.com.